Hello again, everyone. My name is Erik Sprowls, and I was the series creator and director and producer and part-time actor. It's like a community theater. All of the above of the television series Frightening Fridays, and this is the next chapter on our ongoing series of commentaries and how we brought this show to life. And I'm also the voice you hear that says, previously on Fright Night. And that's also another voice that comes to life later, toward the end of this series, the Evil Reaper that we introduce. I think we introduce him in the end of this episode, as a matter of fact. It's a villain that we were going to have come back once in a while and fight creepy, so to speak, on the show. And this is our commentary on how we brought Episode 4 to life. And I was really hoping that I could have had Jeremy Mertz here doing a commentary with me today, because this episode introduces a new character to the show named Damien. That originally we wanted to have the son of the Creepy Reaper on the show, and consequently this is the show that we would introduce him. That later we kind of changed our minds and we introduced him as a long-lost nephew kind of thing. But I was hoping I could have him here to do the commentary today, but I could not locate him. He has moved on with his life and his lives, and time does not stop, as they say. So, moving on, we once again return to the evil Castle Blood. I don't even know how Castle Blood became the name of the castle on the show, because in my past, Castle Blood is a haunted attraction in the Pittsburgh area, Bentleyville, Bellsville area, of a gentleman and his friends who helped me out on another show I had done at one time, Gravely Macabre. But getting back to this show, this particular episode, we're hosting Nightmare Castle. You know, it's kind of funny when you have horror hosting shows like this that you just don't sit around and drink coffee and, do the movie thing. It's kind of funny. So, this one, of course, introduces Barbara Steele, who is really called the Scream Queen of the Italian cinema. So, Creepy did get that part right. And I do like how we introduced Damien. I'm not really sure how we had the idea. It just kind of came to us and Jeremy is such a wonderful actor, because he's willing to do strange and bizarre stuff. And he played the role fairly well. I mean, to his best of his ability. We wanted a character that was kind of in the way. All the characters on the show, we needed a lot of characters because not everybody could be with us every week, and it would be kind of boring if we had the same stuff and the same people every week. So we wanted to have a bit of a wide cast, and Damien is another cast member that we thought would fly. And Jeremy picked out his own outfit. I think Christina Crafty and Jody Reichert, who were Agent Scully and one of the technical directors of the show, decided to give him the real dark black makeup. And he's kind of doing his love of his father right here, mimicking everything that he does on our set B. And the one thing I got to tell you right off the bat that stands out on top of my head in my memory was Jeremy hated this character after a while. Because originally he was, if you watch him, it's a transformation over the series. He starts playing the character like kind of a kid, an overgrown kid who has just an infatuation with Creepy. You know, a real love for his father on the show. And and he ended up playing him gay toward the end, and he said, Erik, I don't want to keep doing this character. He says, everybody thinks I'm gay. And because we were shooting this on a college campus, you know, it's kind of a rough gig. You know, people are out there watching Friday nights at midnight, and sometimes you work with these people, you meet these people, and Jeremy would meet these people in classes or what have you, and everybody would think he's kind of gay. They say, oh, look, it's the gay guy from Frightening Fridays. But I think this is one of the last times that we actually go down to the vault. All of those little effects that you see there where Barbara Steele kind of slid in there and fell out of the picture, they were all added in post. Just something I got the idea from, geez, if you watch any kind of late 90s, early 21st century show like Blind Date, where they would have like little cartoon graphics as an aside from the host talking on the show. But I think this is one of the last times we actually go down to the video vault to unlock the movie. Mike DeShane, who plays the Creepy Reaper, brought up a pretty good point and said that you know, he's kind of getting bored with the, hi, here's the welcome of the show, I get down to the vault, I start the movie, you know, there's not much else I can do after that. I said, yeah, you got a point. So I think either starting in the next episode or the one after that, I think he invents an electric device to call Igor to start the movie automatically. It's like an electrode that he wears around his neck or something. It's kind of neat. That little boy Boo picture up on the wall. I still have a lot of the props from this show. Most of them were mine to begin with, but I still, except for that altar and the skeleton angel, I don't have. I wish I would have.
We're all by ourselves. We're out.
This was kind of a joke that Mike had, where there was a lot of sexual innuendo. We had to play for two audiences on a Friday night at midnight, and the beauty of that is that, you know, we're playing for a college crowd who's stumbling home from the bar on a Friday night at midnight, and we're also playing for maybe a younger crowd who really are watching in the traditional vein of hosting horror movies, you know, and they're up late with their folks watching whatever monster movie we have. So that little thing you saw there with Mike doing the back and forth thing. One time I was out with Barbara, and we were, and now the older crowds, you're led to believe, because we threw the sexy pictures on there, that he was having sex with Barbara Steele, and he says, rowing a boat. It was a joke that flew around the studio for a while after that. We were all kind of proud of. We were always proud that we got to play for two audiences, the older crowd and the younger crowd, and we would just go over the heads of the young kids with sexual innuendo jokes that were, you really just couldn't see as a 5-year-old watching the show, and they wouldn't get it. Kind of like, you know, if you watch a lot of the DreamWorks stuff now, Cars or you know, Monsters Inc. There's a lot of like sexual jokes and stuff like that that are meant for an older crowd. Happy Feet. A lot of those kind of animated movies now will play two audiences. They play it for folks and younger people. So it's kind of interesting to see how they play both audiences.
An apple cart is a cart filled with apples.
Some of the stuff that Jeremy came up with, he did entirely on his own. Like the whole apple cart thing, and with his finger motion, the finger puppets. That was entirely ad-libbed by Jeremy. I can't take any credit for that. Jeremy added that character. And the fact that he talked from finger to finger. In fact, You know, I get criticized once in a while by Jody Reichert, who was the technical director on the show, that this bears a little bit of resemblance to another horror host show I had done called Fright Night Friday. I kind of disagree in the fact that most horror host shows are all the same. It's about a horror host showing monster movies, trying to take over the world, and he's either hosting it from a castle or a haunted house with a cavalcade of different characters. The butler, Igor, you know. I thought Damien was kind of an original character we came up with. And I kind of see the resemblance, you know, between the one I did on the other show between creepy and spooky, but you know, the Grim Reaper is kind of generic. You know, both of them look like the Grim Reaper. So I had a lot of fun doing the little post-production graphics and such that I put in there to assist in making the show a little bit more exciting.
The reason why the original title of the film was called Orgasmo. He also starred in over 30
And again, that is an adult reference. That's what this film was really entitled, that we were hosting, Nightmare Castle, Orgasmo, to an adult crowd. The visual gag you saw there, everybody understands the joke, but to a kid, you know, they don't really get it just yet. You know what upsets me too about this show? The one prop, like that I didn't keep over the years because it was stolen, was that scepter. I like Mike's ad lib there, looking where that football came from. It just kind of came out of thin air, you know. One of the things we wanted to establish from the very beginning was the father and son bond, and Creepy's lack thereof, and Damien's infatuation for wanting that relationship. We thought it'd be kind of fun because Igor is kind of left out in the cold. Or Igor, whichever you're more comfortable calling him. Because he's always been the son on the show. We thought we'd have a little sibling rivalry going on between Igor here and, you know, the new kid on the block, Damien.
I remember during the winter, he used to throw me in a cold pond. And
as you can see, if you look close, see that Igor's outfit there is actually a remade costume from an old Wizard of Oz kind of scarecrow outfit we found. You can see the straw coming out of his sleeves, and he just put it on over top of the one he had last week. I always like that visual gag. I had a real affinity for this episode because we had some fun with it. We had the chance to play with different sight gags and visual gags, and you know, Igor's given the whole, oh, creepy, I love him when he used to beat me over the head with an iron torch, you know. We had such fun, and in the end he gets it in the junk from a football. I don't know where we got this pool cue. There was some real oddity crap laying around the studio, and he's just using it as though he's being his father, Creepy, with the scepter, and he's kind of practicing taking over the world.
Just like my dad.
Igor's about fed up. And if you watch the old Bugs Bunny cartoons with Wile E. Coyote always trying to get the Roadrunner, he always is thinking about, he always thinks about ways to knock off the Roadrunner. So we kind of had that idea here with the stick figures, and he's dropping the TNT on him off of a cliff, or running him down with a train. These are just stupid pictures I happen to draw. You know, it's funny, up until last year, now this is 2007, I still had that little stick of dynamite. I think I still have it in storage somewhere. And all that really is a sparkler in the end of the dynamite. I remember we were shooting this, we had to act quickly with Joel and Jeremy.
Why don't you hold this?
Before the sparkler went out, because we shot this off-season. You can only really find sparklers in July. And we only had a few of them that we could play this scene. Look at that cord on the floor. That's actually what Jeremy's using to hook up with the microphones. We only had 2 wireless microphones in the studio to use, and some of them we had to make do with what we did. We tried to use we were going to use a boom mic, but I didn't like the idea because it just didn't work on the old show I did. You know, if you learn from my mistakes.
You're grounded. You're grounded too. Get up to my room.
I like how creepy grounds Damien and basically kicks him out and rips him a new one. And when he grounds Gigi, he says, "All right, you're grounded too. Get up to my room." Which is just another sexual innuendo joke that, again, goes over the heads of smaller kids, but plays fairly well to a college crowd or to a young audience, even older audience. That particular castle there with the swamp is an actual shot of my home that I grew up in. Just kidding, I didn't grow up in that. I grew up in a castle. Speaking of some of the props on the show, when we all got together to do these commentaries, Mike, who plays Creepy, and Cedric, and myself, and some of the other people, it's funny to learn where some of these props end up and where they've disappeared to. And I think Cedric, or Ben, who plays Cedric, told me that he still has the dunce cap that Damien has here. Most of the other props I still have, including that knight. I'm always proud of that knight in the far left side in the background there. That belongs to me, and it's still in storage. I only use it whenever I do these kind of shows. I remember somebody once looked at me regarding that flaming torch thing on the upper right corner of the screen there. It looks like a real propane or real flame, doesn't it? All it is a little tiny fan with a piece of cloth or Kleenex in there that's lit up with an orange light.
But I thought of that. You're gonna be like a mini-me.
I remember when, I don't know if that was scripted or not, I remember Jeremy there, Damien, jumped into Mike's hands, and I was laughing because, now Mike was a pretty strong guy, and he was in pretty good shape. Jeremy's pretty small, he's a frail, pretty thin guy, but I'm sure just catching him out of the blue there was difficult for him, especially look at all those rags, and you think it's a fairly easy costume to put on, and it's not. He had layers of clothing on there because you have to hide your skin entirely. We learned that after the pilot episode, after you kept seeing Mike's skin from his arm or his legs flap into the scene. So he's really covered up under there. It's a good thing the studio is 50 degrees all the time. I love this. He's just wearing... Now, this was another sexual innuendo gag.
That'll do.
Want me to finish cleaning the floors later?
Yep, later's fine.
Now, the bad thing about that scene was, you know, she was supposed to be coming up from, well, you can take 2 guesses, but her mic was turned off, and the studio technicians let it slide because I was in the studio directing. I'm not in the control room. And after the whole thing was shot, we were editing together in post, is when we discovered that the mics were off. So the joke kind of played flat. And he kind of looked at Gigi and said, okay, that'll do. Whenever you think she comes up from doing whatever you think he was doing down there, she was actually polishing the floors. Again, you can see the microphones on the characters, but I didn't really care about that kind of thing because I thought it was better to have good audio and good video. I didn't care if there was a microphone in the scene. See, now Igor's mic isn't on either. Now that's the responsibility of the control room crew, who just didn't know any better, I guess. I still have those shirts, which is funny. I have a volume of photographs of an album when we did this show. And again, we're presenting this without the movie just because, and we did, you know, we don't own the rights to the movie, even though the movie's public domain or we had the rights to it, to use it. That doesn't... We got to the point where no one was tuning in to see the movie, they were tuning in to see the segments, which I thought was fun. Which was what I was hoping for in the first place.
I can't stand this kid anymore.
know what you mean. I mean, you just stared
Now,
me
how many times does Joel say, I know what you mean here?
I know what you mean.
That's
Wearing
2.
the shirt. I know what you mean.
That's 3.
I gotta do something about this kid. I know what you mean, man.
4. 5.
Whack 'em, boss.
Now, I did like this. This was kind of like the anticlimax, where Joel finally gets to confront Damien over who's the better son to Creepy, you know. And I've always liked the Star Trek, the old TV series Star Trek fight song, because it's perfect vintage confrontation music. It's so cliche and so Admiral Hornblowerish. I like the big climax and you're expecting a big fight, and instead they have like a slap fight. I love the contrast with the Star Trek music in the background. It was perfect. And of course they gain a mutual respect for each other, like they all did in those any kind of TV show where the two heroes duke it out and they realize, oh, we're really better than this. I like Damien's ad-lib here too.
So, what do I want to do?
Let's go beat up some nuns.
Jeremy Mertz threw some really nice one-liners in this show once in a while that just brought me to tears laughing. Let's go beat up some nuns. And of course, it's the 2 o'clock segment. And and this is our final chapter of this episode. Now, I remember this gag we had a lot of fun with because we had him teaching how to ride a bike. You know, the theme of the episode was him being a dad to his supposed son. And actually, Cedric knows the truth. He comes back and tells him, well, it was... I don't know why we didn't keep him as being the son. I know we changed it to the nephew for some reason. But I like the fact that he's just driving back and forth, riding the bike, while all the real meaningful material is in the background. I like that contrast once in a while. So once in a while, in addition to Jeremy riding the bike, you'll see Leah come across riding the bike, or... Here she is, or Joel is Igor riding the bike, and he's like, "Wee." And we had a lot of fun doing that because this was the meaningful conversation, you know. And I was wondering, is anybody really paying attention to who's riding the bike? Switch up, and we're doing this. This is all behind the scenes. You don't see this going on. We were switching up riders and said, "Okay, ready? You go across whenever I tell you, and you go on this cue, and I'll point to you when I want you to ride." And like, okay. And I just kind of felt my way through it, seeing when it was boring, and I'd point and say, "Okay, you ride now, or you ride now, or you ride now." I honestly can't remember why we changed him to the nephew. I guess it's because we didn't want to have the fathery kind of thing that was going on right now. I liked it for the episode, but, you know, it's probably a lot easier. I think that's why we did change it to the nephew, because we didn't want to have the same relationship from this point in the series forward. I didn't want to have a Herman Munster and Eddie Munster kind of relationship. I still wanted him to look at Damien as annoying, and I still wanted Damien to still pursue Creepy as his idol. So we did work back into the plot here, where Cedric comes back from his vacation, and it turns out he's engaged to a new character we introduce on the show for a couple of episodes.
May I introduce Gwendolyn?
His fiancée that he met while on vacation. Looks like Club Nut House, doesn't it?
My fiancée, sir.
Beyonce!
Just look at it. It looks like Club Nut House. You get the butler in a Hawaiian shirt with sandals. Creepy's wearing the #1 dad shirt. Heather's in a witch outfit. He's on a bike. And that, I think, too, was born out of Home Improvement. I think Tim Allen, I think Mike DeShane was a big fan of that show, and he liked it once in a while. And that's a new character we introduced for, I think, 4 3 or 4 episodes. Heather Sage plays Gwendolyn, the fiancée of Cedric. And but we'll have more on that on the next disc and upcoming episodes soon. Until next time, this is Erik Sprowls, the series creator. Hope you enjoyed this commentary, and we'll be back with more on the next disc. Bad luck and worst wishes.
You're watching BUTV, Bloomsburg University Television, the home of the Huskies.